Hi everyone, I wanted to make some videos to help you work through your homework for sections 1.2 and 1.3. Again, we are still talking about our operations within the real number system, and section 1.2 really emphasizes the idea of estimating and approximating values. So let's look at a series of examples and then we will move on to section 1.3. So in our first example, we want to estimate the answer by rounding each number to the nearest 10. And the numbers that we have are 261 plus 32 and 8/10 plus 168 and 6/10 plus 80 and 2/10. All right, so let's look at this. We want to round to the nearest 10 before we add. And that's a common mistake that students make with these problems. Students want to add and then round, but that is not the process that you should use. We're going to estimate the answer by rounding. Okay, we're going to round before we add. So we want to round to the nearest 10. A strategy I recommend using is to underline the digit that is in the tens place. And then, of course, we're going to take it all the way back to elementary school where we look at the digit that is to the right. And if this digit to the right is less than 5, we do not change the digit that is underlined. But if the digit to the right is more than 5, then we are going to increase the number that's underlined. So in the number 261, we're rounding to the tens place. So we want to round here. The 6 is in the tens place. We look to its right. 1 is smaller than 5. So we would round 261 to 260. We're going to repeat this same process for the next number, 32 and 8/10. We're rounding to the nearest 10. 3 is in the tens place. We look to the right. And 2 is not larger than 5, so we are not going to change this digit 3. We're going to keep it. So we have 260 plus 30. Again, repeating the same process, we're rounding to the tens. 6 is in the tens place in 168 and 6/10. And we're going to look to its right. 8 is larger than 5, so that means we need to bump up or increase the 6 to a 7. So 168 and 6/10 rounded to the nearest 10 would be 170. Again, finally, we are rounding 80 and 2/10. We underline the 8 because it is in the tens place. And 0, of course, is just 0. So we would round 80 and 2/10 to 80. And then we would find the sum of all of the rounded numbers. So you can enter this into your calculator or you can add it using paper and pencil. I'm going to add it using paper and pencil just because I don't have my calculator at home. So 260 plus 30 is 290. 170 plus 80 is 250. And then 250 plus 290 is 540. And that would be the final answer. Let's look at another example. Example number 2, we want to estimate the answer again. So we're still estimating. by rounding the first number to the nearest tenth, and the second number to the nearest hundred. All right. And here are the two numbers that we are working with. We're working with 67 hundredths, and we want to find the product of 67 hundredths and 1,563. All right. Let's just do a quick recall about the place value. So let's look at this number, and we'll go back to the example that I just had on the screen. Let's look at 1,425 and $6,789 10,000ths. And let's talk about the place value that each one of these digits are in. So we'll start to the right of our decimal place. The first position to the right of the decimal place is the tenths. The next place is the hundredths. The next place, which would be the 8 in this case, is the thousandths. And the 9 is in the 10,000ths. All right. And to the left of the decimal place, the 5 is in the ones place. The 2 is in the tens place. The 4 is in the hundreds. Please excuse my writing. And the 1 is in the thousands place. Notice that place value to the right of the decimal. For here, all of these names end in THS because they're smaller than 1. They're smaller than 1. All right? So let's go back to the example that we had on the screen before. And the numbers that we had were 67 hundredths times 1,563. And the instructions asked us to round the first number to the nearest tenth. So we want to round this first number to the nearest tenth and the second number to the nearest hundred. And then we want to multiply. Remember, round first, then multiply. So 67 hundredths rounded to the nearest tenth. The 7 is larger than 5, so we would round this number to 7/10. Okay? And if you like, you can put a 0 as the placeholder to help you see in your mind that this is very similar to rounding 67 to the nearest tenth. It rounds to 70. All right? And then we want to multiply it by, we want to round this number, 1,563, to the nearest hundred. The 6 that is to the right of the 5 is larger than 5, so we need to increase the 5 to a 6. So this rounded to the nearest hundred would be 1,600. And then we would go ahead and find the product. We will multiply, and you can put it in your calculator or you can multiply it by hand. And you would find that the product is 1,120. Let's look at another example. This will be our example number 3, and I'm going to pull up the actual question from the homework. Okay, again, this is still from section 1.2. So bear with me, please, while I toggle between the different screens because I'm trying to make this video at home. All right. So Lee's total monthly expenses consist of room and board, $659 for the car payment, $287 for gas, $134 for insurance, $102, and miscellaneous expenses of $259. Estimate Lee's total monthly expenses. So in this section, what you'll notice when you work through the homework is that very rarely do the authors of the book tell you when you're working these kind of word problems of sorts. They don't tell you where to round. All right. So here's a general rule that I like to use. If I'm looking at these numbers, all of these numbers are numbers that are in the hundreds. So I want to round to the nearest 100. Okay. So let me write this on the screen where I can actually write. So I need to snap a quick picture so that I can actually remember. I won't have to go back and forth. Okay. So give me just a quick second. And let's go. All right. So I'm going back to the whiteboard so I can write this out and we can work it out. So example number 3, the numbers that we had were 659 plus 287 plus 134 plus 102 plus 259. Okay. And we want to round these before we add them. And we are going to round to the nearest 100. Rounding each of these to the nearest 100. So I'm just underlining the digit that is in the hundreds place. And we're going to do the same process that we've done for the previous 2 examples. 659 rounded to the nearest 100 would round to 700. 287 rounded to the nearest 100 would round to 300. 134 would round to 100. 102 is pretty close to 100 as well. And 259 is close to 300. So we'll go ahead and add these. 700 plus 300 is 1,000. And then we have 100 plus another 100 is 200, plus 300 is 500. And then we can go ahead and add these to get an approximate total for Lee's monthly expenses of $1,500 or $1,500. Questions? If you have some, shoot me an email or contact me through Remind. I will be available all day, even though I'm home with the sick babe. All right, I'm going to record a part 2 to this video to help us work through section 1.3. So stay tuned and please make sure you click the next video, guys.